Hello, good day, greetings to everyone wherever you are, and welcome to this Q&A, pension Q&A for retirees and beneficiaries. We're here today from the UN Pension Fund, my colleague Denise Gasten-Gardella and I, from Geneva for Denise and from New York for myself. And we will spend the next couple of hours addressing your questions, if you have questions that fill 2 hours. We are also going to give you a bit of an overview of some recent new features in member self-service, multi-factor authentication, so that you are aware of this and know how to handle it or deal with it, and show you a few useful pages on the website so that you also know how to navigate the website and find information that might be useful now or in the future. The session is going to be a Q&A session, so it is not the format of a presentation, a PowerPoint, and us talking and you listening. Instead, we want this to be more interactive, and we invite you to post your questions in the Q&A chat, which I think a couple of you have already started doing that. It's a Q&A sign somewhere on the top of your page where you can submit your questions. They will arrive in an inbox that Denise and I will see and monitor, and from which we're going to pick questions to answer. So it's going to be more of a conversation of sorts rather than a presentation. This format we have done recently with our participants, and I believe the feedback we got was very positive. So hopefully this will be useful for you. And at the end or towards the end of this session, my colleague Regina from the communications team will share a survey so that you can also give us feedback to say whether you do find this format useful, or maybe you have other ideas or suggestions of how we can make this the best format for you. The Q&A is currently open. If we get a lot of questions and feel that it will go beyond what we can address in a 2-hour session, we will close the Q&A. But for now, we'll just leave it open and see how we manage. And even if we close it and we still have time, we will reopen it. So just to give you a bit of how this is going to work. Also, we will not commit to answering all your questions in writing. So in the past, when we had Q&As, because we had a whole team on the side answering questions, that is not the format today. This is about us picking up your questions, reading them out loud, and then answering them basically live. So if we can, we will provide some form of answer in writing also, but we cannot commit to doing that. We are only 2 people, Denise and I, and we probably are going to take turns quite quickly from one to another. In terms of this session being available in the future, we are recording the session and we will post it on our website. I will show you in a moment where you could access the recording of this session, or also recordings of other sessions from the past that you may find useful and you can access in your own time. So finally, just introductions. Denise, my colleague here, is the Chief of Client Services in the Pension Funds office in Geneva. And I am Christine Kartner, and I'm Chief of Client Services and Outreach here in the office in New York. And both of us have been in the fund for a significant time. I can say for myself, 18 years. Denise, maybe if you want to say a few words to introduce yourself. So I would say both of us have been in the business of pension in the UN for a very long time. Denise, over to you if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. Welcome to this session for retirees and beneficiaries. I'm Denise Gasten-Gardella. I've been with the pension fund for 15 years, almost 15. I think at the end of November it will be 15. So I'm looking through the questions already that you posted in the Q&A, and thank you for trying to keep them general so that we don't have the we don't have the opportunity to look into your file while we're doing this Q&A. So we'll be able to answer questions that are more general. And now I'll just turn back over to you, Christine. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So before we go into the actual Q&A, and Denise is probably going to monitor and see how she will start in a moment answering questions, I will go over a few items that I think might be useful to share with you. So let me do that. Here it goes. So I'm going to share my screen, and where we will land will be our UN Pension Fund website. Here we go. So before we even look at the website, and I'm going to scroll a bit so you don't have the constant moving of the screen, I want to highlight that the fund has, I think for the first time in its existence, at least since I have been in the fund, launched a client survey. So if you have an email address on file with the fund, a valid email address, you should have received an email from the UN Pension Fund fairly recently, in which we invited you to answer a few questions to give us feedback about how you find the fund is serving you, your confidence in the fund, and questions around your satisfaction with the UN Pension Fund. We have already received thousands of replies. We have sent the survey to over 200,000 members in the UN Pension Fund, and we look forward to collecting hopefully as much feedback as possible, because it will help us direct our priorities and understand also where are areas where we can improve. So if you haven't yet, we would invite you to check your mailbox and see if you see this UNJSPF client survey. It was sent again, I think, at the beginning of this week, and will continue to be dispatched till tomorrow. And the deadline to provide feedback is actually by end of day Friday, the 31st of October. After that, we will start analyzing the replies that we have received. So if you haven't yet, and you can take a moment, it will take, honestly, I think between 5 and not even 10 minutes to answer the questions. We would greatly value that, again, because it will help us serve you better or more adequately based on your feedback. And if you are happy with the fund, that's great too. And for us, very encouraging to hear also, of course. So now to the website and a new feature that was introduced very recently, actually on the 13th of October this month, which is multi-factor authentication to access your member self-service. This is to make your member self-service more secure. We have received questions from some saying, why on earth do you subject us to this additional clicking and registering and setting up and having to go through a verification in email and so on? It is to ensure that your member self-service is as secure as it can be. You all know that more and more there are scams, hackers, and so on. So the fund, as part of kind of industry standards, moved to improve the security of member self-service. Not that it wasn't secure before, but it is now more secure. That also means that in the future, we will be able to add more features to member self-service to help you have access more quickly to certain services that you could self-fulfill. So member self-service, if you haven't yet set up multi-factor authentication, you will see this yellow banner on the top of the page where we tell you that it is now a requirement and guide you directly where to click and go if you haven't yet registered and set up multi-factor authentication. Even if you have been a user of member self-service in the past, because of this new multi-factor authentication requirement, you will have to again register. So you re-register if you were already a user of member self-service. Once you have done that and you have set up multi-factor authentication, you're good to again go and access your member self-service fairly quickly without too much pain, hopefully. There is also a lot of information about this on our support page, the member self-service page. So let me first show you quickly what it would look like if you had to re-register and set up multi-factor authentication. Sorry, that's not the right link. That is my mistake. Here. So if you click here on member self-service, it will take you to this page. Now, I have already set up my multi-factor authentication. So I, as you can see here, have already provided my personal email and my password, which is hidden, of course. So I'm not going through this. But if you were someone who has not yet re-registered and set up multi-factor authentication, sorry, I have to move this a bit to see the screen that I'm sharing, then you should not fill out email address and password at this time, because you're actually going to first re-register or newly register. So if this is the first time you come back to member self-service, you have not yet set up multi-factor authentication, you have not yet registered or re-registered for member self-service, ignore the field email address, ignore the field password. Don't use your old password that you used in the past for accessing member self-service. Instead, go all the way down to the red button here. I don't know if you can see where I'm currently, where it says register next to instructions. If you click on instructions, it will obviously open the page that will give you instructions, and it takes you directly to your member self-service support page on the website. However, if you click on register, and I'm going to click here, I'm not going to re-register, but so you see what the page looks like, then it takes you to this page, which is the page where you have to then provide certain details to re-register for member self-service and be taken through the multi-factor authentication steps. What you will need is your pension fund unique ID number, the 9-digit number that is included in all the official communications from the fund. So here you need to enter that number, and remember, it may include at least 3 or 2 zeros and then whatever the numbers are. Then you have to provide your name, first name, followed by your last name, your date of birth in the format day, month, year. You can either enter it directly or you click on the little calendar here and you select the birth date on the calendar as you wish. Then you provide your email address. Now, here we say enter your personal email address. You, as retirees and beneficiaries, are probably all already using a personal email address. But if you haven't in the past used and associated a personal email address with your member self-service, now you will have to use a personal email, not a former UN work email address. So here you enter your personal email address, which will become the email associated with your member self-service account. And it will also be an email that we use for communication purposes with you. You confirm your email, and once you have filled out all of these fields, you will be taken to the next step, which I can't complete right now because I already registered, but where you will be asked a security question. The security question that will come up once you have completed all these fields is a question that could be, what was your last employing organization at the time of separation from service? And that's where you're going to select your organization from a drop-down menu. If you were in peacekeeping, you may have the actual peacekeeping mission that you last worked for in there. If you can't find the mission, then you can just use UNHQ by default. If you have a different question, which is possible too, then you answer that other question. Once you have answered your security question and it was accepted by the system, meaning your answer is confirmed by the system as matching your personal details, then it will take you to the next step. And that next step is going to tell you that you will have received an email in the email box that you provided as an email address here at this stage. You should then go to your email. So maybe before you start this whole process, pull up your email on a different tab. Go to your email box, look for an email from the UN Pension Fund, and in that email, you will be asked to click on a link, which will be a link to authenticate you. And then you follow the steps as instructed. So that is a process. Once you have gone through that process, you will have set up multi-factor authentication by connecting this email as one of your authentication steps to access member self-service. Now, if throughout the process you feel something doesn't work or you are not getting to the point where you have completed the process and you need help, you can always contact our support team, msssupport@unjspf.org. So on our website, under resources about member self-service, you have, if you scroll down, MSS support. If you click here, it will open that email in an email, or that email addressed to this team, and they will receive your request for support and address your need for support. Or if you don't want to write to them, you can also use the contact form. But obviously, using this email address is the easiest way of contacting them. You could also, if you prefer, simply call them. So in that case, you can click here and it will take you to the contact for the call center where you can call them and get assistance. Another way of helping is also to start by watching this video, how to register for MSS, because it really takes you through all the steps that you have to go through to set up multi-factor authentication. And then at the bottom here, you have some Q&A. If you have questions, the answers might simply be here. I would say one thing, once you have set up multi-factor authentication and you are accessing your member self-service portal, you will probably be prompted and asked whether you are on a secure computer or device and you want to basically forgo the multi-factor step for 30 days, in which case, as long as you check into that MSS account within 30 days, you will directly access it. So that is a possibility if you like that option, but I would say only elect that if you are on your very personal, secure device where you feel I can do this and I'm safe using this device. I have done it because I know my device is only used by myself and I'm not worried about accessing, someone else having access. So this is enough about member self-service in terms of multi-factor authentication. But I think the main message is if you need help, contact us. And msssupport@unjspf.org is a direct link to the MSS support team. And they're the ones who will help you with your MFA or other MSS issues. Now, why all of this? Why go through all of this to access member self-service? Obviously, because member self-service is a very useful tool where you can do more and more to assist you with the management of your daily or your management of your pensions. What you can do in member self-service is listed here on this page, on the MSS, about MSS page. Among other things, you can update your email address, obviously. So if you need to update your email address, you can do that right inside your member self-service. You can also update your mailing address if you are not on the 2-track and if you're not using a pouch address. If you are on the 2-track or using a pouch address, then you would have to inform us of changes to your mailing address by using a form from specifically for this purpose. Inside your member self-service, you have access to all the official pension fund forms, including change of mailing address, change of payment instructions, and so on, that you can access where they are pre-completed with your name and your personal, obviously, unique ID number and a barcode. Using those forms is the best way of using forms for pension purposes because they are pre-completed and therefore have this correct information for your case, but also the barcode that will help ensure that the form, when it reaches us, is directly added to your case file without any risk of error. Inside Member Self-Service, you can also track all the payments that you get from the fund under the so-called disbursement tab, including deductions made for after-service health insurance, which are also included in this disbursement tab. Also, you can access important pension documents, like, for example, your official benefit letter. Once your benefit has been implemented, there is an official letter from the fund providing the details of your benefit. That letter is posted to your member self-service. So if you have a need for that letter, for whatever purpose, because you need to prove that you're entitled to a benefit from the fund, or because you need to request a visa, or whatever it could be, in that case, that letter is posted inside your member self-service under the Documents tab. You can also, under the Documents tab, generate a statement of benefits, which is a statement that a lot of you, especially if you live in North America or Europe, use for tax purposes to provide the amount that was paid to you during a given tax period. You can now generate your own statement for a past tax period inside your member self-service under the Documents tab, where it says generate a new document. You can also access the annual certificate of entitlement paper-based form inside your member self-service. So if you're not on the 2-track, you will be able to download your annual certificate of entitlement form from your member self-service. It is posted each year at the very beginning of July. This is if you are not using the digital certificate of entitlement feature, the DCE, on your mobile device, and you continue to use a paper-based CE form. So then if you're not on the 2-track, you can download it from your member self-service, print it, date and sign it, and then upload it back to the fund inside member self-service. So you can upload and submit completed documents to the fund inside your member self-service. You do not have to send them by mail. The only requirement is that any document that is a form and requires a signature needs to first be hand signed before you upload a scanned version of the document to the fund via your member self-service. Then you can also track whether your certificate of entitlement or DCE were duly issued and received by the fund, so that you can be assured that all is in good order for your proof of life for the given calendar year. That is under something called proof documents, where you can track this. And then you can obviously access all the official forms of the pension fund, as I already mentioned, completed with your name and unique ID number and a barcode. You can download and print them, complete them, and upload them back to us. Finally, you could submit an emergency fund request if you had a financial hardship situation and believe you qualify for emergency fund assistance. And finally, you could run an estimate of your entitlement under the 2-track option if this is something that you might be interested in and you retired anytime since 2nd of August 2015. So this is why we think using member self-service is a useful tool. Last point on member self-service is that you will notice that early next year, sometime probably end of February, early March, member self-service will change and look differently. We are currently working on a new version of member self-service to make it more user-friendly, hopefully, and offer more functionalities. We are working on this currently. Of course, closer to the date of go live, we will communicate about it. And as always, we will make supporting documents available that might be required to help you navigate a new version of member self-service. So for now, I will stop here. The last point before handing over to Denise is that I just want to highlight a couple of really useful pages on the fund's website. And maybe you know them very well already, but if not, here they are. First of all, news and announcements. Here, the fund, our communications team posts whenever a new article is being published, it is where you can find it. I think it's worth keeping an eye on this page and maybe visit the pension fund's website every couple of weeks or so to check if there are any news and if they are of interest to you. You see here's a whole article about multi-factor authentication that informs you of this new feature, but also something about the client survey. And if you're interested to know more news, if you click here, you will see the extended version of the news page of the fund. Now, then another important feature is this vignette area, where you can select directly what is your status and what are the pages and the topics you're most interested in. If you go up here under for clients, it's the same organization as here on the vignettes, except that for clients, you see at the bottom, you have all topics. If you go to this all topics page, it will take you to a page where you can access all the web pages for which we have created a page, all the topics, I'm sorry, for which we have created a specific web page with related resources and detailed information. But if this is too much, because it's a lot of information, you could say, I only want to see the pages that are relevant for me as I'm retired and receiving benefits. So if you click here, it will then focus only the topic pages that are of interest specifically to you as a retiree or someone receiving benefits, maybe as a survivor. The website is turning right now, so I'm not there yet, but once you get to this page, you will see that there are far less topic pages. On the page for retired or receiving benefits, let me try if I open this like this. It is now a reduced version. And here you have information about various topics that we think might be of interest to you as a retiree or someone receiving a benefit from the fund. Specifically, I would highlight, if you have any question about signatures on documents and authentication of signatures, it's all explained on this topic page. If you have questions about the certificate of entitlement exercise, the annual proof of life exercise, there's a whole page with up-to-date information about deadlines, timelines, requirements, FAQs, and so on. If you're specifically interested in the digital certificate of entitlement, there's a whole page just about that, where you have guides, support documents, FAQs, and so on. If you have questions about how does it work for cost of living adjustments, a whole page. If you're interested in assistance from the fund's emergency fund because you're experiencing hardship and you want to apply for a one-time payment from the emergency fund because you have trouble paying medical bills that are not reimbursed by health insurance, or because you want to ask for support with funeral expenses, maybe for your spouse, or because you have a natural disaster that impacted your living situation, then you can write to us and request for assistance. And so on. If you see fluctuations in your monthly benefit amount, check here, maybe it's explained what could be the reason. If you need to know more about survivor's benefits, then this is a very important page which explains to you under what conditions who might be entitled to survivor's benefit. And if you want to know more about what happens if I pass away, what should my survivors do, how to contact us, what is the information we need, that is all provided under death, for example, and so on. So now I hand over to Denise for the first round of questions, which she will select and answer, and I will go and check the questions in the meantime. Over to you, Denise, for the first round of Q&A.
Thanks. Okay, so thank you all for your questions. I see they're still coming in. I've picked about 13, and let's see if I can get through them in within about 30 minutes. So some of the simple, straightforward ones. Is it possible for the fund to take over the payment of the bank transaction fees in total and not share it with us? Unfortunately, we cannot take over the fees that your bank might be charging you. If you're paid in one of the payroll currencies of the fund, I mean, I think your account would be in the currency of the currency of payment, for example, and the costs should be minimal. But we do know that in some cases your bank is charging you fees, and if you're receiving your pension in a currency that's not one of our 18 payroll currencies, that may be high, and unfortunately we don't have a way to absorb those fees. If you do find that your fees are so high, I mean, sometimes people have if their benefit is also quite small, they can ask to have it paid quarterly or biannually, for example, so that the payment is large enough to make it worth paying the transaction fees on a less frequent basis. Okay, the next question was, how long is the pension payment delayed when changing bank or bank account? So you are allowed to change your bank account or the currency that you want to be paid in, or the account you want to be paid in. And you can do this, we say, up to a maximum of twice a year. It does take some time, at least a month, before the new account would be used for your monthly benefit. And unfortunately, what can happen is if you submit the change just before or around the payroll cutoff, which is about mid-month, then we wouldn't have time to change that for that particular month, and you would have to wait for approximately a month and a half then, so to the end of the following month, for your benefit to be paid to the new account. So keep that in mind if you are planning to submit a change for your bank or bank account. You can make this change through submitting a request through your member self-service document upload. It's the form PF23, or you can send it to us by regular mail. But we need the original signed form from you. Okay, the third question. If you delay taking your pension for a year, how much more or what additional percent is added to your pension? So I'm assuming this is coming from someone who has separated and they still haven't submitted their payment instruction to start receiving their pension benefit. You don't accrue any additional interest after your separation date. So your benefit's not going to be any higher than it was valued at the date of separation in that regard. It won't have any additional interest. If you have a deferred retirement benefit, that is a benefit that you would start receiving when you separate before your normal retirement age, and usually you only start receiving it when you reach your normal retirement age. Now, if that's the situation, there again is no increase in your pension benefit in terms of interest, for example, but there is a cost of living adjustment that is applied as from your age 55. So if you don't start receiving it until age 62, for example, it will still have cost of living adjustments applied from the time you yourself are 55. Okay, next question. This is about the two-track. The question is, I'm trying to understand if, because of the current US dollar slump and having separated end of September 2025, if it is more potentially beneficial to choose the Euro two-track system now. So if you're separated and your benefits in payment, you can run two-track estimates in your member self-service account. And this is what we suggest that you do. So you could run an estimate now with the current date for the country that you would consider declaring as your country of residence. And then you will receive the estimate under the Documents tab in your member self-service account, where you can see what the default dollar track is, which is what you're on now, and then what the local track value would be for the country that you propose. And then at the bottom of the estimate, you will see what's your minimum and maximum benefit amount if you were to go on the two-track, and what your benefit would be for the current month. If you have any questions about interpreting this estimate, you can please reach out to us through our contact form or call us and we can set up an appointment. But we do recommend that you run estimates maybe for a quarter or two and see the value of your pension on the two-track for the country that you're considering. It will be different for everyone. So the person who posed the question separated at the end of September, and someone else who separated in a different year or different part of the year might have a different result. So you do need to run your own estimates and see what the values are. Okay, the next question. I separated from the UN some years back, and in February will reach my normal retirement age. What do I have to do? Just submit the payment instruction form? What else? Okay, so for this question, I'm assuming that you separated with at least 5 years of contributory service and chose a deferred retirement benefit because you did not choose any other benefit when you separated. And I'm assuming you had not even reached your early retirement age when you separated. If that's not the case, then you would need to make a benefit election still. If your benefit election was a deferred retirement benefit, it's due to start going into payment when you reach your normal retirement age. What we need from you, and you should receive a letter from us soon. We send them about 3 months in advance of your normal retirement age for those who chose a deferred retirement benefit. And we ask you to submit a particular form, which is to start your deferred retirement benefit into payment. And that's called the PF23A form. You can find this form in your member self-service account under e-forms. And we need you to fill that document out with your banking instructions. And you do have to print this out and sign it and have it authenticated by either a UN official or a notary. So that document, that original document, needs to be mailed to the fund or uploaded through your member self-service document upload function. We can't accept an email copy of this. And then you'll need to provide the supporting documents, which are, generally speaking, it's a bank statement that matches the banking details on your payment instruction form and an ID document. And please do this soon. You could go ahead and submit that, and then your benefit could be prepared to start going into payment the month that you reach your normal retirement age. Now we have a lot of sub questions in one of these questions. I think I'll go to the shorter ones and then I'll go back to the long question. So we have a question about, if you marry after retirement, are there any benefits that can be passed on to the spouse, excuse me, after the death of the retiree, or any other benefits that the spouse can obtain while the retiree is alive? If you marry after separation, after separation from service, your new spouse, your spouse is unfortunately not automatically entitled to any benefit in the event of your death. If you want to purchase an annuity for that spouse, you need to contact the fund within 1 year of your marriage to arrange this annuity. And we will give you estimates for, say, a 25% annuity, or different percentages that you might be interested in. And we will show you how that will affect your own benefit, because you'll be paying the annuity from your own pension benefit. And then after 18 months, it will be effective. And in the event of your death, that spouse would be entitled to a surviving spouse's benefit in the percentage that you purchased the annuity in. But the main thing, I guess, to say is, if you do marry after retirement, please notify the fund as soon as possible with that information and the marriage certificate, and we will then provide you with information about purchasing an annuity. But it's best if you do inform us if you're interested and provide the marriage certificate and details of your spouse, so that you don't miss the deadline of the 1 year from marriage date. Okay, next question. Is it possible to provide 2 bank accounts for the lump sum portion? Since amounts in excess of $250,000 will not be insured by the bank. We do not have the option to split the lump sum into 2 bank accounts. And we also don't have the option to split the monthly to 2 bank accounts. But unfortunately, no, we don't have this option, splitting the lump sum portion. The next question, I selected the US dollar track and spend in Swiss francs. Can I change to Swiss francs? So everyone who's in receipt of a pension benefit, a monthly benefit, is by default on the US dollar track. So as a US dollar based fund, we calculate all pensions in US dollars. And if you request to have your benefit paid in a different currency, such as Swiss francs, we will execute your monthly benefit in Swiss francs. So that is not a problem. You could have it paid in dollars, or whichever currency you choose. If it's one of the 18 payroll currencies, we will do the conversion based on the UN quarterly exchange rate. And if it's outside of those currencies, then you're subject to your bank's exchange rate. So the question of, can I change to Swiss franc? I'm not sure if I understand the question, but it might be that the question is about the 2-track. If so, that is a different system, which is to ensure the sort of protection against great fluctuations in the exchange rate. And it means that your benefit will follow the consumer price index of your country of residence, and it will be compared against the consumer price index value and value of your benefit on the US dollar track. And I think I would recommend that you look at the information about the two-track on our website, and you run estimates in your member self-service account, if that is what if that's what this question is referring to see the value of the benefit in on the local track for Switzerland. Otherwise, if it's just about having your benefit paid in dollars, but you're withdrawing it somehow in Swiss francs, then yes, you can change to have your benefit paid in a different currency. You just need to submit a change in payment instruction form and request your benefit to be paid in a different currency or to a different bank. And again, we recommend you do that maximum twice a year, because there will be a delay in the processing of that change. So we really ask you to minimize the number of times you change per year. Okay, next question. To what extent would current pension payments be affected by a possible future reduction of staff currently contributing to the pension fund? Okay, I noticed there are quite a few of these questions, and I'm going to set that one aside until I've finished the other questions that I've posted here. So I will come back to that one as well. If I reside in the EU, will I receive my pension in euro? It's from the moment I'm residing in Africa since my retirement. Okay, again, this is about where you want to receive your pension and in what currency. So you could live in Africa and have your pension paid to a bank in the European Union and have it paid in euros if that's what you want. There's no real restriction on that. However, if you're on the two-track system, it is a little bit different, and I do encourage you to attend one of our town halls on the two-track system. We have recordings on our website from on the town hall page where you can see the presentation and follow the recording until we have another session if you wanted to attend it live. But we also have plenty of information on our website. When you are on the two-track, we recommend that you receive your benefit in the currency of the country where you have declared your country of residence. But given the question doesn't state anything about two-track, I'm just going to answer and say, in this scenario, there's no problem if you are living in Africa and having your benefit paid into a bank account in the European Union in euros. Okay. There was a question about how will the fund know about the death of a retiree? And how will it be reported? So if we don't have one specific channel, and in some cases, the former employer might be notified about the death of a retiree, of someone who was their former staff member. Sometimes it's one of the retiree associations who's aware of the passing of a retiree, and we're informed at the fund. Often it's a family member. And there was another question about, well, there's not always information about the family members in member self-service. So how do we know who to contact? We do have information on our website about what to do in case of death. And one important thing is to notify the fund as soon as possible, even if you don't have the death certificate, that the family or whoever is informing the fund can write directly to a special email address that we have called UNJSPF Death Related, un.org. That email address is on our website under the urgent assistance section of the Contact Us page. And you could also call the fund or send that information through our Contact Us form. There was this related question about recovering an overpayment. So how do we recover the payment that might have been made to a retiree? If we had, for instance, even just received their CE or DCE the month before, and then the retiree passes away. So the way that a possible overpayment is recovered is first, if we hear about the death in a timely way, we can actually contact the bank and have the benefit returned. If the benefit has already been paid to the account and there's definitely an overpayment, there's several scenarios that happen. One is that there might be a surviving spouse who's entitled to a benefit, but before we would start to pay the surviving spouse's benefit, we would need to recover the overpayment. So that overpayment is, in a way, if it's not returned to the fund, then it's recovered from the surviving spouse's benefit. And if there are no survivors, the fund does have a communication attempt to have the monies returned. So we contact the estate, for example, and ask for the money to be returned. So there was a question about why the children and spouse are not in member self-service for retirees. And we recently were able to start posting dependents in member self-service for our current participants. But yes, unfortunately, they're not there for those who have already separated from service and who are retirees. We do, however, have emergency contact information that you can enter, and we do recommend that for our retirees that they already make a plan and inform their family about what to do in case of their death, so that the family members know how to contact the fund and what the survivors' benefits would be, that there are survivors' benefits for example, a surviving spouse. Okay, so now I've got one long question to go back to, and then we have the solvency question too, which is part of this long question. Okay, so here we have who is held responsible to inform the fund about the death of a retiree. As I said, that part is either the family, normally it's the family, but we do receive assistance from sometimes former employers and retiree associations. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of the question. Here it is. So this This question is repeated in a number of other similar questions. So this is about, given the recent reductions in contributions from the UN and other participating organizations, how confident is the fund in maintaining its long-term ability to meet pension obligations to current and future retirees? So we have had a lot of questions about the solvency of the fund and whether we'll be able to continue to pay benefits given that there will be fewer participants paying into the fund because of all of these separations that are taking place this year. And the fund does have still a very strong profile. We have had actuarial valuations, and there will be another after the end of this year. So far, the amount that is taken in as the percentage of the pensionable remuneration rate, so our contribution rates, have still been found to be sufficient for meeting the future obligations of the fund in paying out benefits. And so there's no need so far to have increased the percentage of our contributions while we're active participants. And the returns on investments have also been sufficient, so that in general the fund is well funded, and for the long term it is confident that we can pay benefits to our current beneficiaries and retirees, and for those who are currently active participants. So if there are fewer participants in the coming years, there will also be fewer retirees then, because if the total number of staff now will eventually retire, then it would be proportionate to the number of active participants that we have now. But as I said, for the current retiree population, the latest actuarial evaluations have been confirming that we're still in a secure position to pay the benefits for the long term. And I think I had one more question, which is, it was related. So it was about the reduced staffing and how that will contribute to possible the ability for the pension fund to pay future benefits. So Christine, I think I've answered all the ones that I selected for this portion. Are you ready to take over and answer some more questions?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you so much. You covered good ground, I think. So actually, just for your information, I took the liberty to close the chat for the moment because we have still close to 50 questions that we have not yet addressed. Some of them are the same kind of topic, of course, but I thought, let's see how far we can go. And then if we think we have sufficient time, we can reopen a bit later if we think we can address more questions than what we have left. So I have a whole range. I will take them, and similarly to Denise, I will try and answer a range of questions in the next 30 minutes. Denise, for your information, I got as far as, in terms of timestamp, I think at around, excuse me, I think I got to 9:15-ish. I think 9:15 is the timestamp. So if you look at questions, probably those thereafter are the ones I haven't looked at yet. All right, so let's have a look. So there was a question simply about how can I contact the fund? And there was also mention of how can I get personalized attention and information. Just to clarify that anyone can contact the fund and should contact the fund via our official contact details. I'm going to share the screen and we'll take you to our Contact Us page. Do this. I'm in the French version. I'm going back to English. Up here, English. So here, if you see, we have Contact Us. If you click there, it will take you to the fund's contact page. And on that contact page, you will have the different ways in which you can contact us, and of course, the details as applicable. So you can send us a message, which here we have under online, and under email, you see there is this contact form where if you go there, you will be taken to this contact form where you can identify yourself as a retiree or beneficiary. You tell us what we can help you with, whatever it might be. Let's say you need a certificate or a statement. You say for what purpose. Maybe it is for a statement of benefits, for tax period. Voilà, you click that. You could then also explore the information we make available on our website by simply clicking here. And then you provide your unique ID number, your title, your name, an email where we can contact us, ideally the same email that you're using for member self-service purposes, if that is the case, a phone number, your country of residence, and any description you want to add. And then you submit this. Down here, you have to say, I'm not a robot, and then you can submit this form, and it will immediately assign your case and your query to the correct team in the fund based on the request you have, the topic for which you need help, and based on where you reside, because different teams in the fund are specialists on different topics, and different teams handle different countries in terms of your country of residence. So by filling out this form and submitting your request in this way, you will get an acknowledgement, you will get a reference number. So in case you feel we're not answering, you can always refer back to it. And you will get an in-depth review of your request based on your case details and a reply. The response time depends on the priority level of your query. If it's a request around a payment that has stopped or death, we take it as top priority and it will go to the top of our queries. If, however, it is a question about a topic that can wait a little longer, maybe something to do with, I don't know, solvency, for example, which is not an immediate urgency where if you don't get an answer, you can't make a decision, you can't move forward with certain processes, it may take a bit longer. So it depends on priority levels. You get an answer between 1 to 5 days, or if it is a lower priority, 5 to 10 days probably. Now that is if you send us a message. If, however, you prefer to contact us by phone, then you have here the list of local or toll-free numbers where you can call our contact center. We make the numbers available for all the countries where we have such number, where such number exists. So as soon as a number becomes available, we will publish it here. Hopefully the country you are in has a toll-free number. If you contact us via phone, here are the contact center hours. It functions 24 hours from Monday to Friday night. Eastern Standard Time. And it is a contact center where a team of pension experts will take care of you and, if possible, resolve your request, or if it needs a pension expert at a different level, they will make sure to escalate your query to that person. The numbers, the primary numbers are provided here. It's either a New York or a Geneva number, but again, you have all these toll-free numbers otherwise. If you can visit us, you can come and visit us in Geneva or New York during the official visiting hours, which are Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on the office advertised, as you can see here. Before visiting us, I think it's always good to go to this page and check if there's not any reason for an exceptional closure, whether that's a snowstorm or maybe because of a general assembly, we are requested to close our office for a few days because there's too much traffic and security issues going on. But whatever it might be, usually we are open. Just quick check here that all is in good order. You have our address and again, the official days and hours at which you can come as a walk-in client, where you don't need an appointment to come to our offices. So these are the ways you contact us, and that is how you should contact us. Now to the next question. Go back. Sorry. So the next question you had was about the time to implementation of a benefit. So someone said, if I left my agency in the 50s, so you're somewhere in the 50s aged, with over 20 years of service, but before 55, how long would it take for the calculation of my pension benefit? So the question here really is, if I'm still an active staff and I'm electing a benefit, how long will it take for that benefit to be implemented? So I think Denise already addressed that somewhat, and I would say that the time it will take to implement the benefit will depend on how soon we receive all the required documents from you and from your employing organization. So this is obviously a session for retirees and beneficiaries, so I will not spend much time on this question because it really is a question for our Q&A for participants. But I would say if you need advice in this regard, a very helpful page to visit on our website is the following. Going there. So for you who is separating and has questions about your future entitlements, you should look at this vignette, separating or retiring. And once you're there, you'll see that you have information about separation. So that's definitely a page that has all the information you need about what you need to do, what steps to take. There is a checklist that you may want to download and make sure you follow all the steps on this checklist. It's a 2-pager. It tells you what documents you have to submit, what documents your organization has to submit, and so on. It also explains at the bottom of the page the UN Pension Fund processing timeline. And the message there is that the fund can commit only to how much time we take to implement a new benefit following receipt of the complete set of required and duly completed documents from you and your organization. From that moment, we take 15 business days for cases where there are no discrepancies. No discrepancies in your personal data, no discrepancies in the documents you submitted, and no discrepancies in your contribution history in the fund. That is the majority of cases. Most cases don't have discrepancies. So in most cases, the fund will implement the benefit within 15 business days from the date of receipt of all the required documents by the fund. But again, we cannot tell you how much time it will take for you to submit your documents to us and your organization, payroll, and HR to submit their documents to us. So I would say definitely visit this page and also definitely visit the benefit options page here to understand your benefit options based on hopefully an estimate that you have run in your member self-service and that tells you at a separation date that you entered what would be your benefit options. Then go to this page, check the different explanations for each benefit, look at the benefit comparison chart to understand the different kinds of benefits, what benefit would be the best adapted to your specific case, and watch also the video that is on this page. So this is for someone who is not yet separated and who needs information on separation. All right, so then the next question is about UN ID card for retirees. So we get a lot of questions from retirees or future retirees to how and where can I apply for a UNID card, excuse me, a retiree ID card, and is it the pension fund that issues that card? The answer is no. The pension fund does not issue a retiree card that gives you access to UN premises. What is the purpose of the UN retiree card? The purpose is to allow you access to the premises of the organization where you used to work for certain purposes. Oftentimes it is because maybe you need to still get access to UNFCU at the duty station where you used to work and on the premises, or maybe there are other reasons. In any case, the purpose of the UN retiree card is to give you access to UN premises. The UN Pension Fund cannot make the decision whether you should or should not have access to UN premises. Only the owner of the premises, which is the UN, can make that decision. It's the UN, or of course, it could be any of the specialized agencies, funds, or programs. So in other words, it is your organization that will have to issue, or not issue the card, but provide this document and form to apply for a UN retiree pass. So deal with your HR office in this regard. Or if you have already separated and you are a retiree and you now want to apply for such a card in the place where you reside, then you go to the Pass and ID office of the UN office where you want access to the premises. Let's say in New York, you go to the New York UN Pass and ID office, equipped with an ID document and your official benefit letter showing that you are a UN retiree in receipt of a regular benefit from the UN Pension Fund, or in the future will be entitled to such a benefit. So that official benefit letter will then, together with your ID, allow you to receive that ID pass or that UN retiree pass, provided the Pass and ID office deems it is allowed to give you that pass. So what you need is that letter proving that you are indeed a UN retiree and, of course, a valid ID document to identify yourself. Again, the UN Pension Fund has no say in whether you should get that pass and will not be able to make your case if a pass was refused. It's not for us to decide who should get access to certain premises. We can only allow you to come to our premises because we own or are the administrator of our premises. So I hope that helps. I would say if you are a retiree already, make sure you have your official benefit letter, which you can download and print from your member self-service under the Documents, View Existing Documents tab. And with that letter and ID, go to the relevant Pass and ID office. All right, the next question is about the digital certificate of entitlement. So anyone who is a retiree or a beneficiary of the UN Pension Fund and receives regular monthly payments from the UN Pension Fund must comply every year with the digital certificate of entitlement, or simply proof of life, entitlement requirement. I should clarify that you don't have to use the digital certificate of entitlement. If you prefer to use the form, the certificate of entitlement form, which is a paper-based document, you can absolutely continue using that form. You don't have to use the mobile app. However, most of our retirees and beneficiaries have moved to sign up for the mobile app to submit their annual proof of life in digital format. So the question we received was, how can I, sorry, let me just make sure. The question is, what is the earliest date that I can send my biometric data to the fund, and what is the latest date? So if you want to use the digital certificate of entitlement mobile app to provide your annual proof of life, you can sign up for this digital certificate of entitlement. It's called the DCE, Digital Certificate of Entitlement mobile app. Download it on your mobile device, sign up, provide the details that are requested, your name, your date of birth, a phone number, the one of the phone or mobile device you're using, an email address, and then you have to upload a valid ID document, photo ID document, and you have to take a biometric picture. That is to set up your application to use the mobile app. You will then submit that and receive at some point a call from the UN Pension Fund's DCE team, and they will verify in a video call that you are indeed you. And if they are satisfied, will allow you to use this app going forward. So this is a one-time process you have to complete to set up your authorization to use the mobile app. Then, once you have done that, you can now use the mobile app to issue your digital certificate of entitlement every year as proof of life. If you do that, you don't have to submit the paper-based form to the fund. So the question, when can you at the earliest generate this digital proof of life, the picture, the biometric image of yourself, and when is the latest to comply with the annual proof of life requirement? The earliest is the 1st of January every year. So the mobile app opens up for the calendar year to provide your proof of life inside the mobile app at the 1st of January. The latest you can use the app is at any time. You should provide your digital proof of life or your biometric proof of life no later than 31 December of that same calendar year. If, however, you haven't done that for some reason, you can always enter the mobile app anytime as of 1st of January the following year and then take your biometric picture. It's just that then it will be counted as a proof of life for the following year. Ideally, you must provide your proof of life anywhere between 1st of January or 31 of December inside the mobile app. If you cannot or don't want to use the mobile app, then you are going to have to sign a form, the Certificate of Entitlement form, which you can download from your member self-service under the Documents tab, where it will be posted anytime as of the 1st of July, I think 1st of July, every year, and where if you are not on the two-track, you can download this form. You can then print it, date it, hand sign it, and then take a picture or scan the document and upload it back to the fund inside your member self-service under Upload Documents. That is the other way you can comply with this requirement of providing your proof of life. If you cannot use the mobile app or the online document that you can download from your member self-service and print and sign and then upload back to us or send back to us, then you have to wait to receive the paper-based CE form for that year by postal mail. So in that case, you would receive it sometime in July or August, depending on how far away from New York you live, because we dispatch the paper-based form always sometime late June of the given calendar year, and it should reach you as soon as possible thereafter in paper form. So you have those three options: using the mobile app, open to anyone, using the form that is available inside your member self-service that you would have to print from member self-service, date and sign, and then send back to us or upload back to us. Or the third option, use the paper-based form that is mailed to you. Any of these modalities are acceptable. One only is enough. As long as you comply with one of these modalities, you have done your homework for the given calendar year and provided your proof of life. So that's about the time frame within which you can use the mobile app, which is again as early as 1 January and as late as 31 December. Another question about the DCE, the Digital Certificate of Entitlement, was regarding the renewal every January. This person said, I was in an accident several years ago and I can no longer move my neck more than a few degrees. I'm sorry for that. The current digital CE system requires you to rotate your neck on the app. That is true because you're supposed, when you take the mobile image, biometric image while using the mobile app, you're supposed to rotate your face and head a bit so that the biometric image can be completed. So this person says, I can only move my neck with great difficulty. Is there any other way to do the renewal? So the answer to this question is that if you cannot issue your biometric image in the mobile app, then you can use the other two ways that I explained, either accessing your certificate of entitlement form inside your member self-service, downloading it, signing it, and so on, or waiting for the mailed paper document to reach your official mailing address at home. So make sure your mailing address is up to date with the fund, and of course, use the way that is most convenient for you. But you can revert back to using the paper form, either downloaded from member self-service or waiting to receive it by mail sometime in the summer of the given calendar year. I hope that answered those questions. The next question is about taxation. There was a question saying, for the lump sum portion of my pension, how do I calculate the taxable or untaxable portion, and which office is responsible to provide this information? Is it the pension fund or the UN tax unit? The tax unit says refer to the pension fund. So yes, there is a bit of an issue that I think the tax unit in the UN believes that the pension fund can address this issue of needing to have a calculation of the taxable portion of your benefit. Unfortunately, the pension fund cannot provide tax-related information or do special calculations for tax purposes. We serve pension in 190 countries or more worldwide. Every country that taxes pension has different rules, different ways of calculating taxable portions, and so on. So the pension fund is not equipped to provide advice on who taxes which benefit how, nor are we equipped to provide special calculations of taxable portions. Now, what we know is that in some countries, the taxable portion is the part that is exclusive of your interest, meaning the amount of your own contributions that you contributed to the pension funds throughout your contributory service, not including the interest you earned. So in other words, that could be in some countries considered as non-taxable because it's considered that you already paid tax, internal tax in the UN on that own contribution amount. But that doesn't apply in every country. So depending on where you reside, you should consult a financial advisor in your country of residence and determine what is indeed the taxable portion. The other part is you could also, if you're in a country where you have access to a retiree association of former members of the UN, staff members of the UN, they are often very good source of information on taxation, taxable portion, and all of this. So let me just go back and share the website for a moment. Back here. So if you go to for clients and you scroll down to all topics and you scroll to taxation, here you have a topic page about taxation of benefits. Please don't get your hopes up. It is not a page with a lot of useful information in terms of how is your pension taxed in your country of residence. However, it does advise on some aspects of taxation, and it has made available this tax guide that the Office of Legal Affairs of the United Nations and the Tax Office of the UN created back in 2010. I have been informed by these offices that pretty much all of the information in this tax guide is still relevant. If you go to this tax guide, you will see that it includes some information on taxation of UN pension fund benefits with special reference to United States income taxation. So there's some general information here about taxation, not specific to any country, and some information on taxation of UN pension fund benefits by the United States. So maybe you could go there to check if you have information here that helps you in this regard. Oh, I'm not sharing. Sorry, let me go back. I thought I was sharing. Somehow it didn't work. Okay, I'm sorry. Apparently I didn't share, so I'm back. Let me just show you again where you can find this information. So here, if you go to For Clients, All Topics, you scroll down, and here you have Taxation of Benefits. When you click there, it will take you to this page, Taxation of Benefits, with some general information. And here you have the tax guide that I mentioned. And in that tax guide, oh, sorry, back to the tax guide. In that tax guide, you have, if you scroll to page 5, you have United States income taxation, specifically for UNJSPF benefits. So if you are in the US, this might be helpful information. So that was questions about taxation. Now, the next question is about, let's see, survivors' benefits. I think that was already addressed a little bit, so let me go back just to share where you can find useful information about survivors' benefits. Back to the website, sharing again, sorry. So here, if we go back to the page, let's say we go to the home page, if either you can look at this vignette here, Survivor, where I am right now, and click there, or you can go to For Clients, and here select Survivor, and click there. You get to the same page with relevant topic pages. There is this page on death that I mentioned earlier. Let me open that. And there is a page on survivors' benefits, which is this one, which I will also show you. So if you're interested in understanding who is entitled to what and where you can find that information, go to this webpage on survivors' benefits. Here you have, I think, a good video that explains in a few minutes who of your dependents might qualify under what conditions for a survivor's benefits. Generally, a surviving spouse to whom you are married at the time of participation and remain married in retirement or disability is entitled automatically to a surviving spouse's benefit if they survive you. If you have children under age 21 and you are entitled to a disability, normal or early retirement benefit following your death, these children under age 21 would be entitled to surviving children's benefits. A child that is recognized disabled by the UN Pension Fund would also be entitled to a surviving child's benefit beyond age 21 for as long as the disability lasts. In some very specific cases, an ex-spouse might be entitled to a surviving ex-spouse's or divorced spouse's benefit. Very specific and detailed conditions apply for an ex-spouse to be entitled to a surviving ex-spouse's benefit. And then, if there's no entitled surviving spouse, surviving child, and/or ex-spouse, if you had a declared secondary dependent and that person survives you, then this person might be entitled to a secondary dependent survivor's benefit following your death. If none of these survivors exists following your death, and basically you die and there's no one entitled or no longer entitled to a survivor's benefit on a monthly basis, then the fund will check whether there's any remainder of your own contributions and interest that wasn't yet paid out to you in the form of a benefit or to an entitled survivor in the form of a monthly survivor's benefit. If indeed there is a residual of your own contributions and interest that was not yet paid out to you or an entitled survivor entitled to monthly survivor's payments, we will pay that residual amount as a residual payment or residual settlement to the person or people you designated on a special form called Form A2. If you have no A2 form on file with the fund, we pay that amount of residual settlement to your estate. So you see that there is basically a hierarchy of entitlement. First, we check, is there an entitled surviving spouse and or entitled surviving child or children and or entitled surviving ex-spouse. If any of these are entitled, they will receive their payments for as long as they are entitled. Surviving spouse and ex-spouse, the entitlement is for life. Surviving children, again, normally until age 21, the months during end of the months during which a child turns 21, or if a child was recognized as disabled beyond 21. If none of these are entitled, we check, is there potentially a secondary dependent who could be entitled to a regular monthly surviving secondary dependence benefit? If so, either a parent or a sibling, we will pay them accordingly. A parent for life, a sibling up to the end of the 21st birth month. If none of all of these exist, we check if there's a residual of your own contributions and interest. If so, that will be paid out in line with your designation on Form A2. If there is no A2 form, we pay the residual settlement if payable to your estate. So this is in a nutshell how it works. In more detail, you can see all of this in this webpage and read about it here, or you can, of course, watch, I would say watch the video, but also there's a booklet with detailed information on all of these entitlements. And then there is this page, DES. This is a page that might be useful and you should probably somehow share with your dependents so that they know what to do in the event that they have to report your passing to the UN Pension Fund in the future. What to do, how to contact us, where to contact us, with what documentation, all of that is explained here. So that is in response to the question about survivors' benefits. Then there was a question about divorce. The question was, my husband divorced me and wants to claim half of my pension. We live in different countries. Am I responsible for paying taxes on the portion of my pension that ends up with him? So here is something I want to explain. The fund does not normally get involved in any payment you may have to make to your ex-spouse as part of a divorce settlement. A divorce settlement is between you and your spouse and the court that makes the decision. If then you are obliged to pay alimony of some form or a portion of your pension, normally you settle that directly with the spouse separately from the pension fund. The fund does not usually get involved in any of that during the lifetime of our retiree or participant and their ex-spouse. Only if a retiree of the fund refuses to make payments to an ex-spouse and is obliged to make these payments under a divorce decree, that ex-spouse can request the fund to make payments directly to them. In that case, we invoke an article that is Article 45 of the fund's regulations and rules and can make direct payments to that ex-spouse in the form of a portion of the pension entitlement of our former participant, now retiree. But this is a very exceptional arrangement. Usually, the fund expects that all settlements you have between you and your ex-spouse are taking place directly between you and your ex-spouse. Now, in terms of taxation, that is, again, not for the fund to decide. We are not regulating taxation. We are paying benefits. So if you have taxation-related questions, you have to address these to a tax expert in your country of residence. Unfortunately, we would not be helpful in that regard. What you can do is definitely, if you're in the stages of divorce, you can consult and write to us in the fund and ask if there's any document like an estimate or something, some information that might be relevant in the context of finding an agreement for the settlement of your divorce. And we will provide whatever we can provide. But again, we cannot advise on pension taxation, and we are normally not part of payments made directly to an ex-spouse while you are alive. We come into the picture if an ex-spouse were entitled in the future to a surviving ex-spouse's or divorced spouse's benefit following the death of our retiree. So I hope that helps a little bit into addressing that question. Now, there were a lot of questions about solvency, and Denise already talked to that earlier. I will just highlight where you can also find really helpful information in that regard on our website. So if you go to the resources, no, sorry, about us. So if we're on the website, let me go to the homepage. And here about us, if you scroll down, you have actuarial, sorry, matters, and you click there. It takes you to this page, and that sounds very technical, right? But it actually explains, I think, quite simply how the fund works in terms of assessing the longevity, like the long-term ability of the fund to pay benefits in perpetuity to our membership. So you will see what we explain here is that the fund is constantly monitored and assessed to ensure that the fund can pay benefits in perpetuity in the long term to anyone who is currently entitled to a benefit, but also who will become entitled in the future. So I know, of course, there were a lot of questions around, but with the current situation and UNAT and cutting off posts and staff and participant, basically a decrease in our participant numbers, and therefore a decrease in the income from participants, and so on and so forth. Is the fund viable? Can the fund continue to pay benefits? What I will just say, and details are on this page, and I think they explain very clearly how this is all assessed and valued and ensured by the fund. I can say that the fund is being assessed through an actuarial valuation every other year. The mandatory requirement is every 3 years. The fund, however, does it every other year, and that the latest valuation and prior valuation have all found that whether we are looking at an open group, meaning the current group continues to exist, new participants join, new retirees join the fund, and so or become entitled, and so on. Or whether we look at a closed group where no future participants join the fund. We are who we are, and now we are not receiving more contributions for new participants, but we're working with a static group of retirees, beneficiaries, and participants that are currently in the system. Would the fund be viable? The answer is yes. The fund for the last over 75 years has built its assets to a very, very solid amount of assets, over 100 billion US dollar. And between the assets and the contribution income from our current staff/participants, and the income from the employing organizations, the fund is fine. It is perfectly fine. It's fully funded. It's not grossly overfunded. It is not underfunded. It is working as it should as a maturing pension fund. And it is found to be in a position where, yes, we can say that under all the circumstances that have been assessed, the fund will be able to pay benefits into the long term at the rate that the entitlements have accrued. If you want more information, there's info on the actual valuations, there's info on the asset liability management of the fund, which is very important, of course, to see whether indeed what is the fund's long-term outlook? Do we need to change anything in the asset management of the fund? And then there's a funding policy. So all of these combined tools and monitoring together have assessed the fund to be healthy and to be absolutely able to withstand what is currently happening, or even a more severe situation of no future participants joining the fund. We would still be able to pay benefits. And if you're interested in the investment situation of the fund, you could go here under Investment Historical Fund Performance, where you will actually be able to monitor and see what is the investment status of the UN pension fund. Is it growing? Is it decreasing in terms of assets? And what is the trend over time? It takes a little bit time to load this page because it's a very heavy page, a lot of data, but you will see that the fund currently stands at over 106 billion US dollar of assets that it has in addition or as funding for payment of our benefits, which are around $3 billion per year. So you see, we have far more than we need to pay what we currently owe in terms of payments to our beneficiaries and retirees. And by the way, that amount that we pay every year is nearly fully covered by our income from participant contributions and organizational contributions. So for now, I stop and I hand back to Denise for the next round of questions. And I will stop sharing for now.
Thank you. So I see the Q&A was closed, and we do have a number of questions to try to cover in the next 20 minutes. So I'm going to just go down the list of what I have gone and put into the published section. So there was a question on retirement. I indicated I would start pension at 62. Can I change now to 65? So I'm assuming, okay, you've separated and your normal retirement age is 62. You should submit your payment instructions to receive your benefit before you would risk it being forfeited if you don't submit your payment instructions within 2 years after the default deferment period. But up to age 65, if you changed your date to start receiving your retirement benefit at age 65 and your normal retirement age is 62 and you've already separated before age 62, your benefit will be retroactively paid from your 62nd birthday. So all that benefit that was due to start being paid at age 62 would still be paid out to you, even if you wait a couple years to start receiving the benefit. So it will not increase the amount, and you, as I said, you will have the retroactive amount paid out to you. And be mindful of the risk of forfeiting your benefit if you do not request payment of your pension. So I think I've touched on that enough. Then we have there was a question about the limit that a consultant can earn if they are in receipt of a pension benefit and they're working as a consultant and there's some kind of cap on the amount that they can earn. Just be aware that this is not a pension fund rule. This would be something that your employer would be imposing on you with any income limit if you're working, say, for the UN as a consultant. The pension fund is not involved in those types of the monitoring or the determination of any maximum amount that you could be paid. If you're in receipt of a pension benefit, the pension fund will just continue to pay your benefit to you. The only exception to that would be if you're reemployed as a staff member and you again become eligible to participate in the fund. At that point, we would suspend your current pension benefit and you would again become a participant. Then when you separate again, your previous benefit would be reinstated. You would start receiving that again, and you would have a second benefit that you would decide upon when you separate the second time. There was a question about survivors' benefit and if the documents that would be in a foreign language, I think this one was about Latvian, if they would need to be provided in English. And yes, if your document is not in an international format with various languages usually there's French and English, for example, the two official languages of the pension fund, then we do ask you to have a translation of the document. There was a question about where to send documents. It could be to the Geneva or New York office, and the mailing addresses are on our contact page. If you want to send by postal mail or by courier, those addresses are there. I had another question about mandatory age of separation. So a member who is 2 years to mandatory retirement separated from service at age 63. So if the normal retirement age was 62 and there was not any further participation no further employment and no further participation in the fund, then the question was, how does this person proceed and what should they do about having no more active service in a UN organization or an agency? So if you've separated and you've at least reached your normal retirement age, your only benefit option will be a retirement benefit, either with or without lump sum. And that would be payable from your normal retirement age. So in this question, it wasn't completely clear to me if the normal retirement age is 62 or 65. Assuming it's 62 and the person has already worked beyond that age, then the retirement benefit is payable already, even though the person worked till age 63. If the person's normal retirement age is 65 and they separated at age 63, then they would be entitled to an early retirement benefit, which is also payable upon separation, but it is the early retirement benefit with or without lump sum. So in either case, you do have up to 36 months to submit your payment instructions and make a benefit election of, excuse me. But the general information would be there on the separation page of our website. Excuse me, with the information about the different documents that you need to submit. And you could reach out, sorry, to the fund if you need any advice about your benefit election. There was a question about changing beneficiaries. I'm sorry. Where do I upload my form? So this also, the question wasn't completely clear to me, but if you have beneficiaries who will automatically be entitled to a survivor's benefit in the event of your death, such as a spouse or a child, or then you can't change those beneficiaries. They would be determined based on your family composition at your time of separation from service, or, for example, if you married after separation and you purchased an annuity for your new spouse. If the question is about the beneficiary in case of a residual settlement. Then that is the A2 form, which is available in your member self-service account. You can print it, sign it, and then upload it through member self-service, or you can mail it to the fund or drop it off in person if you like. But we do need the original signed copy of that. And if you upload it through member self-service, we will accept it as if it were an original. The next question. I'm trying to find it here. Oh, yes. If you take early retirement at age 58 with normal retirement of age of 62 with 27 years of contributions, can you confirm that the reduction factor is already included in the MSS estimate? The answer is yes. The early retirement estimate amount in your member self-service estimate already has the reduction applied. So the amount you see is the result of the reduction having already been calculated. You don't have to do any further calculations. And then the second part of the question was that the lower reduction factor applies only for 5 years and then reverts to 6%. What happens in the above case after 5 years when I turn 63? Okay, so let me break that down into two parts. So again, you don't have to know this because the reduction is already calculated when you see the estimate of your early retirement benefit. But it's true that this lower percentage is applied to a maximum of 5 years. And that means that 5 years that you separated before your normal retirement age. So if you separated age 58 and your normal retirement age is 62, you're separating only 4 years before your normal retirement age. So there would be a 3% reduction in this case for each year of those 4 years that you have before you had reached your normal retirement age. So we're looking at the period between your age at separation and your normal retirement. That's the years that we're talking about when we explain about the percentage of the reduction factor. Once you've already separated and you're receiving your early retirement benefit, when you finally do reach your normal retirement age, there is no change to your benefit. Your early retirement benefit has been determined because of the age at which you separated from service, and it will have cost of living adjustments applied to it over the years as applicable, but there's no conversion to any other type of benefit once you finally reach your normal retirement age in retirement. Okay, and then we had the question again about the consultant. So I think I answered that. And why haven't I received my paper certificate of entitlement? So there were a few questions about when will I be told that the certificate's going to be mailed, and will we be told once it has been mailed? So Christine had explained about the digital CE. And the yearly cycle for the digital CE is 1 January to 31 December for each year. So you have the entire calendar year to issue your digital certificate of entitlement. If you've registered for digital CE, you could submit next year's from the beginning of the year. You don't have to, though. And in fact, it's especially important to know that if you're on the 2-track, please make sure you're in your country of residence when you issue your DCE. There's no rush to do it at the beginning of January. You have the entire calendar year. But if we haven't received your digital CE by the time we start mailing out the paper CEs, which is in June, then you'll get a paper CE. So we mail out the first round of CEs per year in June. And everyone who's not on the 2-track can actually download their CE from their member self-service account once they've been created and posted there. So let's say in June. And then you can print it, sign it, and upload it through member self-service document upload, or you can mail it to the fund, or you can wait for the paper copy to reach you in the post and then mail that, or scan it and upload it to through member self-service. So you have various options like that. If we have not received your digital CE or your paper CE, and it's coming around to October of the calendar year, we will send another paper certificate of entitlement out in October, and then the calendar year ends at the end of December. And if we still haven't received your certificate, we will be following up with you and through retiree associations and trying to find anyone who has not submitted their CE so that they will not be suspended. But if we haven't received your CE, your benefit will be suspended the following June. Usually, that is when we do the first round of suspensions for the prior year. There was a question about what to do if you're illiterate and you have no email. So you don't have access to email or you don't use email. I wasn't quite sure if the question was just about certificates of entitlement, but if you're able to call and use the phone, we have toll-free numbers from many countries, and those toll-free numbers are listed on our contact us page. So you can always call the fund, and that's how you can reach us if you have any questions. However, we do require something from you for your certificate of entitlement. So we do need either your paper form, which you can receive by mail, or even if you don't have an email address that you use, if you're able to receive the certificate in the mail, you can mail it back to us. And if you have problems with that, then you should contact the fund by phone or whatever means that you have available, and we can assist you further, especially if you have not received your CE and are not able to use the DCE. Then I think we had one other question. Has the fund released the October monthly payment yet? So we released the monthly benefits at the end of each calendar month. And depending on where your bank is, it might take more days from the time the payment is released till it's on your account than for others. So, but for everyone, it's released at the end of the month, of the calendar month. So I think we're almost out of time. So Christine, if you saw any questions that you think we should address in the last 2 minutes, please let me know. But I think we're pretty much out of time to cover any of the other longer questions.
Yes, I think so too. I mean, there is this question about the situation of the devaluation of the US dollar. And of course, that is a pretty complex situation, but maybe just very, very high level. And I saw there are several questions around how will that impact my benefits if I'm paid in euro? How would it impact benefits if you're on the 2-track, and so on? And it's a complex situation. But generally, I think what we say is that, of course, a weaker US dollar, if you're on the 2-track, versus a stronger local currency, means that the two-track, if you are available or if you can elect it, might be a good option. However, you should also keep in mind that usually what that means is that the cost of living adjustments for those who are on the US dollar track are actually stronger, because a weaker US dollar means usually higher cost of living adjustments over time. And as you know, your pensions are adjusted for cost of living movements over time. So yes, on the one hand, there is maybe an issue with the weakening US dollar, especially if you're not paid in US dollar and you don't reside in the US dollar. But you should keep in mind that if you're on the US dollar track, you are going to probably benefit from a higher cost of living adjustment. That's not a guarantee, but that is the trend. And usually what we see is that one offsets the other. So that is one comment. The other is about what if you're on the two-track. So I think there again, you also have to remember why people could select the two-track. Is it always beneficial to be on the two-track if you elected the two-track? That depends, again, depending on the strength of the US dollar, given that we are a US dollar-based pension scheme, and that means all benefits are initially set up in their US dollar value and then converted into currencies of payment as applicable, and in the context of the two-track, adjusted based on local cost of living movements and so on. So what I'm saying is that yes, there could be times when it is more or less beneficial to be on the two-track, but you have to remember why you go on the two-track, and that it is a system that allows for certain stability of payment of your entitlements, because it is, as you know, fixed for a 3-month period. So regardless of what happens up and down during the 3 months, you are locked into the value of your payment for the quarter for which it is payable. So is that always enough and reassuring enough? Probably not. But at the same time, the two-track is also about reflecting your purchasing power or your needs in the country where you reside. So obviously, if you're on the two-track, you have no choice because you're on it and you elected to go on it. And as you know, it's a lifelong decision. But I think, at least also based on the feedback we get from our actuaries and experts on currency questions in the fund and so on, it is not a situation that is as easy as to say, because the dollar devaluates, it will necessarily have a negative impact. It really is more complex and requires looking at individual situations more. I know this might not be necessarily the answer or clarity that everyone hopes to get. We all are, of course, observing what is going on with the US dollar. But overall, I think keep in mind that if you're on the two-track, it's more measured and there are more factors that contribute to your overall two-track entitlement than just the value of the US dollar. But I would stop there because we are over the time, and simply say that we spent 2 hours. We covered nearly all of the questions. There are a few outstanding, and we'll see if we can answer them in writing and publish them before we close completely this session. Those questions that we did not address in speaking, I tried to answer in writing, and my colleagues helped also in addressing them in writing in the chat. So hopefully, even if maybe your question wasn't moderated publicly, you find the answer in the published version or chapter of the chat. We still have, I think, 10-ish questions that were not directly addressed, so we'll see if we can address them in writing, but we will log off and you won't see our faces anymore. If you keep logged in and you monitor the chat, a few more questions will probably be answered. And with that, yeah, just big thank you to Denise and to everyone who contributed to this session, our communications team, who prepared the broadcasts and supports this event every time very extensively, and of course, our colleagues in OICT who make it happen from a technical side and support us very, very much. And then thank you for your attendance. I see we still have 220 people or so. We hope it was useful. If you saw the survey published, hear about this session, if you take a few minutes to just complete it so we know whether this format works or should be adjusted, then that will help us. And again, if you haven't yet taken the overall pension fund client survey that was sent to your email, please take a moment to let us know how the fund is doing. And that is it. And if you hope to submit a question but weren't able to because we closed the chat, then I'm sorry. And we will have more of these sessions in the new year. So there will be more of these Q&A sessions so that you have an opportunity to ask your questions directly to us. Denise, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Just to say thank you, everyone, for attending and for your patience while we tried to get through the questions. I hope that this format was interesting, and then just to remind you also how to reach us and to please consult our website with the other town halls if you're interested, and looking at what the future dates will be for the upcoming sessions. Yeah, so thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And everyone, all the best and good health. Bye-bye.